What is up, everybody? My name is Hector Flores, host of the Insert Name FC podcast, a member of the Belly Up Sports Media Network, and I am not going to lie to you, I'm pretty pissed off because I don't know. So I literally recorded the entire, at least my entire portion, which is obviously the introduction, headlines, players of the week, and games to watch, and then the closing segment of this episode. I literally recorded the whole thing. Not, I can't tell you how much time it took, but recorded the entire thing, and then when it got to audio to editing, um, something happened to the audio. It literally was a button on the device that I used that was not pressed on, which was the USB play mode. So obviously, because this thing's hooked up through a USB, so because it wasn't linked, it wasn't that button wasn't pressed. For some reason, the audio sounded terrible, almost non-existent. So imagine if I didn't actually have checked the audio, which is something that I need to start doing because we've had at least now two instances where the audio just disappears. Um, and so, which now I'm going to have to do a little bit more, but I should do nonetheless. But yeah, so, obviously, this is obviously Insert Name FC, member of Belly of Sports. And yes, if you can find us on all things podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast fix on, you'll find us there for your listening pleasure. Also, we're video version, so we have a full video podcast available on the Belly of Sports YouTube channel, and you can also find us on Goals TV, GOLZ.TV. That is where you can find the full video podcast episode. So also, I don't. So for the two episodes that I was referring to, that where the audio just disappears, at least into like certain part of the episode, our MLS preview episode and our episode, the last one we did, both those instances happened. The video versions work perfectly. The audio is fine, which is crazy because that is the same audio. Um, it is literally the same audio that it just disappears on you, which is kind of weird when you think about it. But so at least I know for sure the video version, the audio is great. So if you guys want to watch it on YouTube, once again, Belly of Sports YouTube channel. Also, go to Goals TV, GOLZ.TV, and you'll also find the full video version of that episode as well. Now, we do have a YouTube channel, and these video versions, basically we break these episodes down into shorter clips, so it's more easier to digest. So that is also an avenue. So if you guys want that, check us out on YouTube at Insert Name FC, and you'll find us there as well. Follow us also on our social media platforms on the X and Instagram at Insert Name FC, also on Facebook at Insert Name FC. So you guys can see some of the posts, and we'll try to be more active on those channels as well. But yeah, episode 209. This episode we do have headlines. We're going to talk a little bit about some MLS stuff, some FIFA stuff, possible Brazilian returning to international football, which is great, obviously on my part. On my thoughts, reviewing episode 3 of MLS Onside, which is a really interesting episode. It features Cavan Sullivan, so I'm really excited to talk about that one. We have Jose Tellez from Goals TV that will be available. They'll be discussing that with us, and obviously give you guys players of the week, games to watch this coming weekend, and yeah, pretty straightforward episode. So, like I said, I literally did this entire episode, but because of a simple button that you didn't hear anything of it. So here is me. Obviously, it's not going to be the same thing, but so obviously, and if I didn't even mention this, you probably didn't even know that happened. But this is the transparency you get from Insert Name FC. When I mess up, and I do mess up frequently, I'll at least admit to it. So, with all that being said, we're going to take a break, and then we'll go right into headlines. Let me tell you guys about Belly Up Sports. Belly Up Sports is the internet sports bar. Go ahead and check out their website, www.bellyupsports.com, to read some great articles from great writers all across the country, from hockey, baseball, golf, soccer, you name it. Belly Up Sports is the premier, not your average website. All right, guys, headlines. First thing we're going to kick off is the Seattle Sounders is using this cool ticketing strategy that is called the First Match on Us program. So it's pretty straightforward. If it is your first time to ever attend a Seattle Sounders game, the tickets are free. So, and I think it's, I don't know all the details, but I would assume that it's select matches. So not Obviously, if Seattle is somehow playing Inter Miami, I don't think that match is going to be free. But I think this is a really cool initiative. I think that this is a great way to grow a fan base that is already pretty prevalent when it comes to MLS. I think when it comes to fan bases, Seattle Sounders is definitely amongst the top of MLS fan bases. So I think it's really cool that they're doing this program where you can very much, if you're not certain, if you're not sold on MLS or even sold on Seattle Sounders, you can go to the game, experience Lumen Field, which by the way is a beautiful stadium, and experience a Seattle Sounders game. If you guys use the first match on us program on that LAFC match, which I don't know if that was, once again, I'm not sure if it's available for specific matches. Maybe this LAFC match was one of them, but if you did, you just saw a 5-2 shellacking. So that's definitely a great way to start. And I think it's really cool that they're doing this. One, it's growing the game. I think that we need to start having these more accessible opportunities. I will honestly tell you, as a Houston Dynamo supporter, one of the one of the easier reasons why I was able to support the Dynamo, at least go to attend Dynamo matches, was because of affordability. Tickets were super affordable. Even getting good seats were very affordable when I was going. And this is kind of like back in the day when I was still in the Marine Corps. So whenever I came into town on leave, I would try to watch a sporting match, like a sporting event. Ideally, the Dynamo, if the Dynamo were in season, but if not, like a baseball game, it's probably usually the go-to as well. But the Dynamo, one of the things that I liked about it, I didn't necessarily go online because SeatGeek wasn't really much a thing at that time, or any of these other ticketing sites. I think it was Axis. I think Axis was the ticketing site that you had to go to buy tickets to Dynamo matches. So in all actuality, it was much easier to just drive up to downtown, walk up to the stadium, go to the ticketing booth, and buy tickets from there. And from there, you can see the prices depending on the section. And I think at the time, I actually liked sitting in the well, like I actually prefer sitting in the upper level, ideally like somewhere around the sidelines because you get like a better view of the pitch. But I do remember like first level seating was like $30, at least at that time. This is also years ago, so also a lot of pounds ago as well. But yeah, like I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a cool, the affordability. So it incentivized me a lot more because it was like one, it's cheaper. So like if I had to choose that over a baseball game, which in hindsight the Astros were really terrible at the time, so I think their tickets were also just as affordable. But like versus the Texans game, I guess it was super affordable, and um, I got a good seat, and then I can focus. Maybe if I had like a specific budget, now spending 30 or $18 on a ticket, now I can think about, okay, let me get my drink, let me get my food, maybe I want a shirt, things like that. You can play around a little bit more. So I think that at least initially for me, the affordability was really cool. Now, if the Dynamo ever had this first match on us initiative program, I would be intrigued to see who takes it, who actually like tries it out, because like I spoke last week about the whole Messi not coming here and people were crying. Which, if you're a child, I totally get it, but if you're a grown man crying that Messi didn't come to a Houston Dynamo game, I think you need to reassess your life in some sense. If that's crying material, if that's like worthy of crying, like that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't cry. I think people cry, if you need to cry, cry, exactly, obviously. But to cry about Lionel Messi, I feel like Lionel Messi, for Miami choosing to rest him because they had a CONCACAF Champions Cup match coming sooner than later. I feel like if you're crying because of that, and once again, you're an adult, priorities is the word I'm trying to think of when it comes to it. Once again, I totally get if you're a kid. If you're a kid and you're going to see arguably one of the best players in the world, probably the best player in the world, depending on how you feel. Yes, I get it. You're going to cry because, you were hoping that this was probably like that once in a lifetime opportunity if you're a kid. So I totally get it if you're a child, especially if you're a super Messi fan and he's not there. I would get why you would be upset. Whereas you're an adult, and I mean, yes, it's disappointing, but I don't expect, like waterworks from it. Once again, priorities. And I mean, once again, I get it. You spent a lot of money hoping that you're going to see Messi. You weren't guaranteed Messi. You were guaranteed Miami, which that's what you got. But I get that part. So like for me, like I even though I think it's cool that the Dynamo offered a free ticket for in exchange, a free ticket because of the fact that you didn't get to see Messi. I thought that was cool. I don't know how many people really are going to use that, which I think is disappointing because you're essentially getting offered a free ticket to select Dynamo game, kind of similar to what this first match on us is essentially, and you're not going to take it. So but I think the Dynamo's a little bit of a different situation. But I will say, if you offer free tickets to a Dynamo game, you take away the ticket price away. Now you open yourself up to parking, and now you can maybe be willing to spend a little bit more on parking. Maybe you're willing to spend a little bit more on food. Maybe you want to buy a jersey. Like things like that becomes a little bit more feasible in some sense. But I mean, I think it's cool. I think more MLS teams need to consider doing this because I think one, it helps build the game, it helps connect with the community, and I think that's one big thing too. It's connecting with the community. You're trying to grow this team with the community. If you're offering free tickets to the community to come and watch the game, experience a Dynamo game, I think that maybe this is going to be a good way to pack seats. Once again, I can't predict it. I mean, like I said, what I'm seeing more and more and more and more of is the fact that people just frankly don't care about the MLS. They just view the MLS as an inferior product, probably doesn't give it the light of day, or when they do give it the light of day, you get a match that is a tad bit boring, maybe a little bit like where you feel like you could do a better job on the field, which is obviously ridiculous. These guys are professional athletes nonetheless. Um, but and that's the unfortunate part. And then obviously it doesn't help when you have like all these like content creators that poke fun at the MLS. Obviously the fight and win, which I make fun of it constantly. I love the fight and win chant, which is kind of connecting it back to Seattle. But look, U.S. soccer is trying to create their identity. And I mean like, which is what everyone's been saying for us to do. Build our own cultural identity, and just because you guys find it cringe, maybe we like it, but which I think it's also pretty cringy. But that who cares? Like who cares? At least they're going to games and singing in some sort of level. Like I don't necessarily. I'm not saying go to the pub and start singing other songs, but I mean like they're trying, and I don't know why the effort isn't being at least acknowledged. But anyways, that's a whole other conversation for another day. I still, like I said, I think it's cool that they're offering free tickets to people for your first time. Spencer, you live in Seattle, buddy. I feel like you should probably, and I'm not gonna say anything because obviously Spencer is an likes Atlanta United, but I'm just saying, man. You're already in Seattle. You get a chance to get a free ticket to a Seattle Sounders game. Lumen Field's a beautiful stadium, by the way. So I mean, why not? Why not go for it? Why not take advantage of that opportunity? Yes, I do think more MLS teams need to think about doing this. Like I said, you don't have to go like. Obviously, there's certain games that you know for a fact you're gonna get people to go to those games. Like Enter Miami, you don't need that game doesn't need to be free. But like, for instance, Houston Dynamo versus Real Salt Lake, which is actually coming up this weekend. That one you can probably throw in some free tickets for. So like kind of certain matches. I'm not saying that they have to be. I think definitely throw in a derby somewhere. Like I think definitely having a Texas derby, whether it's FC Dallas or have the little Copa Tejas matchup with Austin FC with Dynamo. I think those are really good matchups that they can have for people, especially when you're on first time of a first match on us initiative, because what better way to get people in than letting them talk shit about Dallas or Austin. Like I think that would be great to build, like especially when they feel some type of way, like, oh man, we can't let Austin win this game. This is Houston kind of thing. Those things I think is going to be good for the city. I think it builds a community. It shows that the Houston Dynamo wants to connect with the community, and I think that's what Seattle's doing. Seattle's like, hey, we already have a great community, but we want you to be part of it. We want you to see it. that person is still hoping that the Seattle Supersonics becomes a thing. Well, we have a team here. Like, come watch us, come see what all the fuss is all about. And I mean, look, we just beat LAFC 5-2. Want to see why we did it like that? Well, come watch it. And I think this is such a cool initiative. I want more MLS teams to do this. I think this is a great way to grow the game here in the U.S. is by offering this. Like, I mean, if you're losing money, as everyone keeps saying that we are, at least as if you're an MLS supporter, what's the loss? What is the loss already? So, I think this is a good move, especially if you're New England, because that was a bad crowd. That was a bad crowd. All right, next headline. So this isn't necessarily a headline. This is actually like a conglomerate of other things that are going on. But we're gonna talk about FIFA, for this whole thing. So we're gonna start things off with the thing that's more coming up, and that is the FIFA Club World Cup. Now, one of the things that I had concern about was who was going to broad. Well, I didn't necessarily have a concern, but it was an issue that was being brought up that they were having trouble. FIFA was having trouble getting a broadcast deal done for the FIFA Club World Cup. Apple TV did come in, offer $1 billion to cover the tournament. They basically said no because they wanted, I believe, $4 billion for the FIFA Club World Cup. Well, I don't know what happened with Apple TV, but I guess it just didn't pan out because they ended up signing with the Zone. The Zone will carry all 63 matches of the FIFA Club World Cup on their platform, and the deal, which was done in December, is worth $1 billion. So basically, they took their loss because once again they viewed it as a $4 billion contract. Everybody else was like, "Nah, it's not." And once again, because I think that this FIFA Club World Cup has a lot of questions behind it. How is the transfer window going to be acknowledged throughout this period? Like, our players are just going to leave when they get transferred out to another team. Now, they did add this new feature for only the FIFA Club World Cup only, where you can request a loan player. So, for instance, let's say because Pachuca is in the FIFA Club World Cup. If Pachuca could try to get, Chucky Lozano and Hector Herrera, right? Ache, both guys that have played for Pachuca. Like, if they can get them on a loan to come play for Pachuca for the FIFA Club World Cup, they could do that, and it'll only be for that tournament. Once that tournament's over, obviously Chucky goes back to San Diego FC, and Ache goes back to Toluca. So that is like, I don't know exactly what that all entails. I think that that's weird, but kind of interesting at the same time because you're talking about, PSG. Does PSG try to bring Neymar back to PSG so he can get some FaceTime because FaceTime in the FIFA Club World Cup? Does Real Madrid try to bring in Cristiano Ronaldo to play for them in the FIFA Club World Cup? Like, all these possibilities, right, is now being kind of like, what can we really do? What can we get more names? And I think that's what I think. It's up to 6 players that each club can bring in on loan. So, like, Inter Miami, like, I mean, if they wanted to try to get, I can't think of any players, honestly. But same thing with Inter Miami. Maybe this is their chance where they could bring in some players for the FIFA Club World Cup. Maybe they go get. I can't think of any players right now off the top of my head. But some of Messi's friends. So that's all I can think about. So that is a possibility. But going back to the broadcast deal. So the Zone, it is an app. I've known it more for boxing. I've never actually used this platform before, so I can't really tell you all that it comes with it. I don't know what leagues are essentially paid into the Zone, but at least from what I'm seeing, at least from what I read, I haven't seen anything that conflicts this. The Zone will have all 63 matches available globally, and the streams will be free. So the streams for these FIFA Club World Cup matches will be available free on the Zone, which at least that incentivizes me a little bit to at least download the Zone and see what they offer. Maybe if I like how they do the broadcast, maybe I decided to subscribe to the Zone. Probably not, but at least if that is what it is, like it's not one, if it is free as they're saying, like, oh no, it's free for people to subscribe. If they do that, I'm gonna be pissed. But also TNT the TNT network, TNT, I don't know what the group's called. TNT Group, I guess is what it's called. Is actually joining in on the FIFA Club World Cup. They will be featuring 24 of the 63 matches will be available on their channels, which is TNT, TBS, and True TV. Now, depending on what you have as far as your cable provider, whether you have a cable provider or for instance me, I have Fubo TV. Fubo TV doesn't have TNT, so as far as me getting a chance to watch it on that, it's probably not available. But I do believe, and I can't, don't quote me on this, but I do have HBO Max, and I think HBO Max has TNT. Because I don't know if, I don't really remember. Maybe I was high. I can't tell you. But I remember watching a Lakers game, a TNT broadcast Lakers game on HBO Max. Once again, don't quote me on it. I feel like that happened, but I can't tell you the truth. But I feel like that did happen. So maybe if you guys have HBO Max, and maybe someone could confirm this with me, but if you do have HBO Max, I think maybe you'll be able to watch some of the TNT broadcasts on their platform as well. So that is an option. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it is very intriguing. Look, I'm still not sold on the FIFA Club World Cup. I'm gonna watch it. I mean, I have to. Kind of have to at this point. But cause it's just because I still have so many questions to how this thing's gonna work, that I just still don't have answers for. But I think that this is at least a good start to it all. I think that this is, at least you have a broadcast deal. You have someone that's going to cover these matches. At least you have some sort of thing. So the Zone and TNT, those are pretty big. So I think that that's pretty interesting, and I think that that at least shores up something, because obviously this is going to be a sort of a dress rehearsal, if you will, for next year, which is the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which is really the big thing. To go into. And I think, and this will be just a perfect segue right into the other thing that's going on with FIFA. Hey guys, this is Hector from the Insert Name FC podcast, here to tell you guys about Canadips. It is a great tasting, superior alternative to traditional dip using CBD in a way that is radical, enjoyable, and effective. It comes in 5 core flavors: wintergreen, mint, citrus, mango, and American spice. Canadip CBD is the new evolution in dip, allowing guys to enjoy great, long-lasting taste without the downsides. If you guys want to go ahead and try them out, use the code BELLYUP20 at CanadipCBD.com. Once again, BELLYUP20 at CanadipCBD.com, and you'll get yourself 20% off your purchase. Thank you again for Canadips for being a great partner of Belly Up Sports. So Infantino has been talking about adding a halftime show to the World Cup. Obviously, Infantino has been doing a lot of stuff with the U.S., trying to put in a lot of promotion for the World Cup here in the U.S., has done a lot of interviews, and obviously one of the big things, he was at the Super Bowl. Which for American standpoint, this is the biggest event in America. People, not only do people in America watch it, but people across the world also do watch it. Not at the level of a World Cup or a Champions League final, but still enough to get for all the eyes to see. Now, Infantino was asked a few questions about how this would, potential of the World Cup. I think Rodri was also featured in those discussions as well. But I'm guessing that he saw the spectacle that is the Super Bowl, which, I mean, it's just huge in general, not only from the game perspective, obviously it's a championship game, but advertising. Everyone talks about these Super Bowl commercials, how lucrative, how crazy, how different these commercials are versus a regular commercial that you see. Obviously the halftime show is probably one of the biggest things. Like, I do think that if you were to see the numbers of the Super Bowl, like especially this recent Super Bowl, what was the viewership of the game itself versus the halftime show? And I think that there is a massive spike when you think of the halftime show, because of the fact that there's probably there's probably like a good amount of people that don't necessarily care about football or just sports in general, but care about seeing Kendrick Lamar. So, and I think that can also be said for any halftime show. I think there's more people that are intrigued there's a lot more people that like. I think music is probably most more can be generally say that most people like, and sports is like not sports isn't for everybody. It's perfectly fair. So, but as soon as that halftime show, because depending on who that is, whether it's a Bruno Mars, a Beyonce, a Rihanna, a Lady Gaga, like people are gonna be like, "Oh, it's time for the halftime show. Let's go watch the halftime show." So I think that Infantino saw that spike, and I'm sure he got to see like the numbers, the ratings on the Super Bowl, and saw that the spike happened at that in the halftime show, and it's like we need to get in on this. Now, in the World Cup final specifically, is there some sort of music performance? Yes. They usually do it for like the pregame. So before the match starts. It's not. See, the only reason why I don't remember Qatar having it. I could be wrong. Qatar at this point is just like a blur to me. Like I don't remember too much of it. The last time I remember a performance, I think goes back to the 2014 World Cup because I believe Shakira performed before the match. I remember Shakira. That's all I remember. I just remember distinctively Shakira was doing like a little pre-match concert at the stadium, but it wasn't on the field. It was actually like at one of the ends of the stadium. It had this whole stage and everything. Don't quote me. Maybe I was high on that too. I can't tell you. But well, actually, I couldn't because I was in the military at the time. But I think when you think of World Cup, you think of music. Music and World Cup. I mean, music and sports in general. It goes hand in hand. Like music does a lot of things for people. Either get them hyped for a game, mellow them out, keep them focused, all these things. But music and sports kind of go hand in hand. But in the World Cup, obviously, you have the World Cup song. What is the official song of the World Cup? Whether you're Ricky Martin singing "The Cup of Life," whether you're uh, Shakira who did "Waka Waka." I'm more of a waving flag guy, but which now I'm not kind of noticing like there's been multiple World Cup songs like in the Qatar World Cup. I know was it Little Dirk? I think it was Little Dirk. He made a song with Coca-Cola, I think, which I thought that was supposed to be the official World Cup song, but then Nicky Jam, Will Smith, and some other artists did another song that was supposed to be the official World Cup song. And then there was another artist that performed. I think it was I don't remember the name of the group, but they had their official World Cup. So yeah, at this point, I don't know. I can't tell you. I mean the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, they had Waka Waka with Shakira, and then they had Waving Flag, which a lot of people actually liked Waving Flag more than they liked Waka Waka. I mean Waka Waka is still a vibe, but 2014, I think J Lo and Pitbull did a song. Yeah, in 2018, I don't remember. I don't remember what 2018 was, to be honest. Anyways, but music and the World Cup is kind of already a thing. But there's no halftime show. There is not a halftime show concert. And I think probably, I don't know for what reason. I can't tell you why. But I'm guessing Infantino saw that and was like, we need to get in on this. And we need to get on it now. And he found somebody to help find a musical act, which is Coldplay. And I will tell you this right now. If you say that you don't like a Coldplay song, you are a liar. There's no way you can't say you don't like one Coldplay song. I think it's crazy. So I'm thinking that's just my opinion of that part. Okay? You don't like one Coldplay song. I think that's a lie. But they are basically going to be, I think Coldplay very internationally known. I believe they're based off of England. Obviously very popular here in the U.S. and probably popular all across the world. So they're being put as helping to find acts. Now, it's not just one act in general because they're going to actually be having, I think, concerts throughout the tournament in Times Square in New York. Because if you guys don't know, the FIFA World Cup final will be in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So New York adjacent, if you will. So I think that in Times Square, which I think was really cool, they'll have like a stage. At least what I'm envisioning. Watch, by the time the World Cup happens and I see the stage, I'm gonna be very disappointed. But I'm obviously envisioning like in Times Square, you're gonna have this stage, probably similar to like how they do it for like the New Year's Eve, how they do it for New Year's Eve. So that's probably somewhere along the lines. But you're gonna have a stage, and basically Coldplay is gonna be trying to bring in artists from across the world, because it's the World Cup. You got to have international stars performing, and I think the World Cup final has to be huge, like a world-renowned artist that is going to have everybody excited. Because once again, Infantino is going to want that spike. He wants that spike to happen. Like, people are already going to have all eyes on the World Cup final. But for the people that don't necessarily watch sports, he wants that number. He wants that number on the ratings. Like, he wants to see the spike in the halftime show. And I mean, why wouldn't you want that? That means more eyes, more money, more sponsorship money. It's the win-win, right? So while yes, maybe some people don't like the idea of a halftime show because it's very American, I guess, I don't know. But I mean the money potential, which I mean at the end of the day, FIFA money revolves for money is the important thing for FIFA. So especially like I said, that spike is going to be all he sees is money from that spike. Because like I said, you're already gonna have a high number because of the viewership for this match, for whatever match it is, whoever the final is gonna be. But when you get that spike for the halftime show, that's just cha-ching is basically what Infantino's gonna be hearing. He ain't gonna be hearing the music that they're performing. All he's gonna hear is cha-ching, money, 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 baby. That's all he's gonna be thinking of, man, for sure. So I think it's a cool idea. I think it would be, especially if you're talking about America, especially the fact that it is going to be here in North America. Once again, it's USA, Canada, Mexico. USA being the main, the focal host. The co-hosts are essentially Canada and Mexico. Obviously, the finals in America. So I mean, a halftime show is very much an American thing. I mean, when you talk about Super Bowl, so like I can see what Infantino probably got some inspiration from the Super Bowl, from being at the Super Bowl and seeing the spectacle that is the Super Bowl, and he is now thinking like, how can I get that going for the World Cup final? And I think seeing this, I'll be intrigued. I'll be very excited to see who ends up being announced as the performer for the World Cup final, because that is going to be telling of a lot. I know a lot of people make jokes that it would be funny if Drake was to perform the halftime show, which he is world renowned. I think it's fair to say he is world renowned. I think people across the world listen to Drake, so I don't think that is like a crazy idea about Drake. It'd just be funny because like it takes him 2 years to finally respond, or like it'll take him like essentially 2 years after to finally get his response to Kendrick Lamar. So that would be kind of funny. But I mean, nonetheless, I think obviously it's the World Cup. It's going to be huge. It's got to be a world renowned artist, in my opinion. And then the last thing involving FIFA. So someone brought up the idea for the 2030 World Cup, which is supposed to be the anniversary of the first World Cup, which it's already weird. I don't like this, the way the 2030 World Cup at least is going to be. So the first opening matches will be played in Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina. So that's where, because that obviously the first World Cup was in, I think it was Uruguay. I don't remember, but I just know that that was like the first World Cup. That was where it was. It was at least in South America, and so that's where they're having the opening matches there. But the host for the 2030 World Cup is Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. So this to me is so stupid. It should just, like, if you're gonna just honor the fact that the first, I think it was the Uruguay, just have it in Uruguay. Just have Argentina, have Paraguay. They're all next to each other, so I'm perfectly fine with that. And then the next year, then have Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. Even though I'm not really that thrilled about the Morocco part, Spain and Portugal makes sense. They're right next to each other. Morocco is kind of a little bit of a skip over there, but obviously this is like kind of the new way of how to like get the World Cup bid, is by having these co-host bids. These, so that's where like the bizarre things is. I'm just saying, if I'm Morocco, I would step out of the Spain and Portugal one and just compete with with Saudi Arabia, because 2034 is essentially going to be Saudi Arabia's, because there's no other confederation that could compete. Uh, because once again, you already have technically, North America CONCACAF has already been done, because obviously 2026. And then essentially 2030, your CONMEBOL is automatically out because of they're doing this part. UEFA covered because of obviously Spain and Portugal, and then CAF is out of it because of Morocco. So unless New Zealand can somehow get the host, it's going to be Saudi Arabia. Or I don't think it. Maybe they have already announced it, but so like if I was Morocco, I think I'd be like, you know what, Spain, Portugal, y'all do y'all's thing. I mean, obviously you can't go back now. There's no backing out now. You're already in it, but if I was Morocco, I would have been like, y'all do that thing. I'm gonna compete with Saudi Arabia, and I'm gonna try to see if I can get this bid for 2034 by myself. But who am I? Who am I? Who do you think I are? Who do you think you are? I am. It's also the anniversary of that guy, by the way, Pete Weber. But yeah. So for the 2030 World Cup, obviously it's already going to be monumental because it is going to be the anniversary of the first World Cup. And I mean, obviously, I think technically all of them are the anniversary, but this is like a very significant one. And Ignacio Alonso, who is a representative from Uruguay, proposed the idea of expanding the World Cup to 64 teams. Now, it's already expanded to 48 teams for this 2026 World Cup, which is the newly expanded World Cup. And yeah, when Ignacio proposed this idea, basically everybody was like, yeah, that's going to be a no for me, dog. Infantino was just kind of rubbing his chin and was like, that's not that bad of an idea. Yes, it is a bad idea. Don't think about this. Do not make this longer than it needs to be. We're good with 48. 48 is a good number. You have enough good enough you got enough representation. You don't need more representation than that. It is fine. You don't need 64 teams. 64 teams would just be overkill. Keep it at 48. Like, it is cool to have more representation. I'm all for it, but at the same time, like, you lose the exclusivityness of the World Cup, like the point of qualifying for the World Cup. Because I mean, 64 teams, like at that point, basically all of South America can go in. All 10 South American countries can qualify for the World Cup. I mean, CONCACAF. I mean, if El Salvador can't qualify for 2026, they can definitely get it for 2030. So like, which I guess in that case I would probably be all for it. But yeah, like I said, 64 teams, overkill. Just 48 is fine. 48 is perfectly fine. That is a good number. Infantino, you don't have to do any more. You don't have to add any more. Ignacio, everybody was right to be stunned by your idea. Like, Infantino should not be even remotely thinking about it. Like, this is fine. We're good with 48. Don't need 64. Keep it at 48. It's fine. Don't add more countries to it. This is perfectly fine as it is, even with the potential thrill of upsets. It's 48 is a good number. We're good with 48. We don't need to add more groups. So there, that's all I gotta say. And then the last headline is, so Neymar is rumored to be in this roster for Brazil in the international break. So obviously next week will be the international break, and it is potentially that Neymar will be on the list for the Brazilian national team, which is great. Well, which is obviously huge because this is his return to Brazil. Obviously he's been out for a whole year because of an injury and has been essentially sidelined because of the injury. Which obviously he's now no longer Al Hilal. He's over at Santos now, back in his boyhood club, and he's very much looking like Neymar. And I think that is a good thing for him. And because he's looking like Neymar, Brazil's like, this is what we need. This is the spark we need to get Brazil back on track. Now, their matchups are pretty big because it is Colombia and Argentina, two of the stronger nations right now in CONMEBOL. So I believe these are World Cup qualifiers for CONMEBOL. So this is pretty big. These are two pretty big matches. Brazil has been very overwhelming recently, and which is crazy with all the star power that this national team has, and you're not able to get the results that you expect to get for Brazil. It's weird. I don't know what the problem is. I can't tell you what. You have like you have names on names like your backups should on paper be better than most of the other national teams, and they're just not performing. It's weird. I can't tell you what's going on. And I maybe it is Neymar. Maybe Neymar is the guy that needs to put Brazil. And I think because if you really think about it, obviously Neymar kind of got like a rough had a rough going, being that he had to just be part of arguably one of the worst eras to be like a good promising player, world class worthy player, when you had to be also within the same group of Ronaldo and Messi, because like everyone got overshadowed by Ronaldo and Messi. Like Robert Lewandowski could probably be argued as one of the best strikers of all time. Same thing with Luis Suarez, but you weren't Messi or Ronaldo, so you didn't get any like looks for Ballon d'Ors. So like, and I think Neymar is one of those guys that unfortunately was a casualty of that. Like, he never got his Ballon d'Or moment. He never got his like moment in the sun because of, I mean, he did get his moments. I'm not saying that he didn't, but it always got overshadowed by the fact that Ronaldo and Messi existed in that same timeline. And so, um, but I will say Brazil, even though Brazil was always like close but no cigar. I mean, they did win the Olympics that one time with Neymar, and Neymar it meant the world to Neymar. I think maybe that's something that maybe he can maybe he's a missing piece for Brazil, and maybe when if he's able to showcase that against Colombia and Argentina, like he can be the guy that moves the ball with. And the reason why I'm saying that it's important because where I was going into that whole thing was a lot of the guys that are in this Brazilian national team, they grew up watching Neymar, and which is crazy to think because Neymar when Vinny and Rodrigo and all these other young Brazilians when they were watching, like, I mean they were they were kids watching a 17-year-old 18-year-old Neymar killing it for Santos, winning Copa Libertadores with Santos, and then going to Barcelona and being part of that iconic MSN, and then going to PSG. A lot of people say that that was a dumb move, but I mean I think still had a pretty good career for himself over there at PSG. Um, Al Hilal, I mean, I'm sure he wants to forget about Al Hilal, but hey, he got the money, and now he's back with Santos, and I think him being back to himself, being having fun again, is going to be infectious. It's going to be infectious to this Brazil team when he goes in there. He kind of brings that the vibe, bring back the jogo bonito of just loving the game and being fluid and funny and just fun having that. Maybe that's what's going to bring this Brazilian team back to where we all thought they should be in. And so I'm hoping for that. I'll be personally rooting for that because, like, I mean, once again, me growing up, my dad was a big Brazilian fan. He loved the Brazilian national team. I mean, when you're Salvadorian, that's all you really, you got to be happy for somebody else than your own national team because our national team stinks. Like, I mean, they're good now. They're not awful now, but I mean, yeah. So I always grew up, I grew up watching Brazil. Obviously, Brazil has been such a big influence on me when it comes to football, soccer, because of the fact that like if it wasn't for R9, I wouldn't have been a Madrista. Same thing for Edward. If it wasn't for Ronaldinho, he wouldn't have been a Barca fan. So like everything kind of when it comes down to this podcast specifically, it comes back to Brazil. Like everything gets connected to Brazil. So I would love to see Brazil back to being the one of the best nations in football because it just doesn't feel right if they're not in the conversation. So there's also that. So I can't wait to see it. I hope Neymar brings this Brazil team back to the level where they should be, and it's all smooth sailings for him. And hopefully he stays healthy because that's also what I'm rooting for. But all right, guys, we're gonna take a break, and then you're gonna go and hear me and Jose talk about episode 3 of MLS Onside. All right, guys. Episode 3 of this 8 episode series of MLS Onside. And just quick update. I shame on MLS because this is actually an Apple TV feature. I thought this was like MLS Season Pass exclusive. No, it's Apple TV, so you don't even need the MLS Season Pass subscription to even watch this. So
Yeah.
I got Messi meets America again. So because I thought that was also an MLS Season Pass exclusive, and I was very much wrong. So.
But it's good. It should be that way, bro, to be honest. It needs to be in front of the casuals. So like it kind of makes sense. But yeah, I remember like searching for it in episode one. I was like, bro, where the hell is it? And then it was like, oh, it's an Apple TV. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think once again it's just me wanting to see more exclusive content on the MLS Season Pass. Once again, wanting a little more bang for my buck.
I said, the games are enough. You're fine,
Yeah,
Hector.
yeah. I feel like Atlanta United fans knowing that right now it's 11 million per goal for late. So
Yeah, seriously, bro. Seriously. But this one was a banger. It was a good one, I thought.
yeah. So before we get into this, Jose, what were you doing at 14 years old?
At 14 years old, I was, bro, the biggest my soccer career ever got was like being a freshman on the varsity. I was like starting to make my way through FC Dallas a little bit. The academy was going to form in the next couple of years. So like I was, there were rumors of that, but that's literally it, bro. There was no sense of like, oh shit, I'm gonna, get a chance to step onto a professional football pitch or match. Yeah, I can imagine what any generational talent must be going through mentally.
Okay, your answer is a lot better than mine because I discovered the stop and go didn't ideas. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. Nah, man. At 14 years old, I definitely had dreams of going pro. Don't get me wrong. But I was nowhere near that. Like I was super fucking ecstatic to be a freshman who made the varsity at my school, like a pretty competitive soccer school. But like that's it. That's all it was.
fair enough. But yeah, because we're talking about 14-year-olds, because this episode is called Young Blood, and it is the Caven Sullivan episode. Caven Sullivan signs with Philly at age 14 to count down on the homegrown phenom to make his debut as the youngest MLS player ever. So obviously, Caven Sullivan, if you guys don't know, at the time, he's 14 years old. I believe now he's 15. Highest homegrown contract in MLS history. Um, Obviously, this is all that happened last year. Um, is now the youngest MLS player ever to debut. I'm sure at some point we'll break that record. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but it's a very unique situation with Caven Sullivan. He has a lot of hype behind him. I saw him in person at Generation Adidas Cup. Fun fact, if you guys have MLS Season Pass, you do get matches of Generation Adidas Cup, which is coming up next month, I believe. So if you guys want to see how these MLS academies have grown, because obviously everyone keeps, making fun of that the MLS doesn't have a good academies. You're not completely wrong, but there are some actual good MLS academies, and if you want to see it in person, Generation Adidas Cup, which also features other academies as well from Spain, England. I think they even had when I was there was a country, an academy from Africa also that was there. So it's a really cool tournament. I think it's awesome. If you guys get a chance to watch it, watch it. It is I generally and I think Jose maybe one day for goals and insert name FC actually be there at a Generation Adidas Cup, not as a worker, maybe would be a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Actually, if you haven't heard of it, go guys, go look at it, man. It's a lot of very promising prospects coming through that.
Yeah, and Caven Sullivan is one of those instances. So, just so you guys are frame of reference, when I was working with the Dynamo, when we were at Generation Adidas Cup, everyone was talking about Caven Sullivan because he was 13 years old playing for the U15 Philadelphia Union Academy, which I believe that year was I think the U15 lost to Austin's academy, and then this U17 team defeated FC Dallas's academy, which once again there's a goalkeeper that used to be in the FC Dallas system that I was like this kid to be tested because there's no way that kid's a grown man.
Are
So
you talking about iStone?
Stone, that dude,
Yeah,
I was like, wait, that's the goalkeeper for Dallas, and they're like, yep, that bro, that guy's a man. Like, just like,
dude is built for the Premier League, and that is where he is.
yeah. Also, if you guys want to get a good idea of if there's any hype amongst an MLS Academy product, just look at their cleats. If they're not wearing Adidas cleats, they're it's because Nike or whoever wanted to get ahead of everything. Also, if you're Caven Sullivan, because this kid the following year was wearing the Nike Prada exclusive cleat. I don't. I guess Adidas wanted to jump on it. But anyways, he was 13 years old playing for the U15 team for Philadelphia. So he jumped two age groups to play in that tournament. I do believe Philadelphia had a U16 team as well. I don't know if that's changed. But yeah, so they had that. It was actually really cool. I got to see him in person, and I was just like, this is a 13-year-old playing against kids that are significantly bigger than him. Um, obviously did fairly well, made it to the final, lost it, but still made it to the final nonetheless. And then he went on to represent the U15 USA team and actually, I believe, got player of the tournament. Once again, playing up two age groups once again. So, as far as hype goes, yes, there is a lot of hype around this kid, but I think he definitely does back it up. Now, Jose, I obviously, you probably don't have much first eye experience on Caven Sullivan, but when you were hearing all the hype about this Cavan Sullivan kid, which I'm sure he was everywhere in social media as far as if you have anything that's following soccer, especially in the US, what were your thoughts when you heard about this 13, 14-year-old phenom?
Actually, Hector, I do have very little in-person experience watching him play. I was at All-Star Weekend, yeah, and he was there for the MLS. He like made an appearance with like I think it was MLS Next All Stars, I believe, because of the age thing. He hadn't yet been playing with the actual MLS players just yet, so got a chance to like very very briefly. I think for the sake of like injury and just promising prospects, they didn't really play him all that much, but you could see it. And I think from what I've seen on Cavan Sullivan, even just in the very limited amount of time he's gotten with the first team, I think when I watch players play, especially attacking minded players, I think what I look for is something that Jim Curtin actually, and we'll talk about it throughout this video today. Something he mentioned during this episode, which is like his explosiveness in the attack. I think his ability in a young attacker, it's not so much what they do once they're running in a straight line or already dribbling at pace and trying to get around a defender. I think when you're past the ball, you receive it, how quickly can you get out of the blocks, right? How quickly can you take the ball, make that first two steps, and beat your man? And I think that is something I look for always. I'm a defender by nature, and so I just have a keen eye, I think, for that, like for attackers, wingers, forwards who are going to try and get around me. I would pay attention for the first few times they touch the ball and how quickly they would turn it up from them. He's pretty special in that department. I think his explosiveness is really unreal. And guys, I was around, and Hector, I'm sure you were around too, right? To watch Freddy Adu do it back in the day. And Freddy Adu, one, was a PR fucking machine, but I never really thought, this is not a slight against Freddy Adu. I just never really thought he was the most explosive player. I never thought he was the fastest player, the most athletic. Obviously, he was 14 back then. It was just like he had a fantastic touch. His finishing was pretty damn good. He tended to find himself in the right places at the right times. Also came up with a sibling. And so I saw some things in Cavan Sullivan that I didn't really see in Freddie Adu or any other youngster, frankly, their age. I can only imagine what Cavan would do at the high school level, at the college level, because his ability to quickly turn it up to another level is unreal.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we could go ahead and touch up the whole Freddie Adu thing because this, obviously, this is a little bit different of how MLS Onside did, obviously, because you're not following two teams, you're just following one specific player and his family, and the game that is leading up to is the game that's going to potentially have Caven Sullivan break Freddie Adu's record, which is to be the youngest MLS player to debut. And yeah, I mean, and that is a talking point in this episode where they bring up, is this going to be another Freddie Adu situation? I think contextually there's two different things that are happening. One you mentioned as far as the play style goes with Caven versus Freddie Adu, but the other thing is Caven, at least at this point, obviously it's not perfect, but there is a system now in MLS. There is a process from academy player the fact that there's even an academy, because I don't even think at that time there was MLS academies. So there's actually a route for a young player to be able to go besides going and playing high school soccer, going to a college, and getting drafted. Now the whole Freddy Adu thing, I honestly forgot how exactly he got into the eyes of DC United, but they saw a really good 14-year-old and said, "Why not? Let's go get him." And which obviously in reality this is outside of all the norms when it comes to American sports, because you don't sign kids that are only freshmen in high school. I mean, yes, we had Kobe Bryant and Kevin Garnett, but those guys were graduating high school, and also they're like 6'4" or 7 feet tall. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. You probably should draft that kid. But for the Freddie Adu situation, like there was no proper channel to make him be ready to be a pro. Whereas, kind of how I mentioned with Caven Sullivan, he was going through the proper youth system. Okay, going through a youth system. I'm not going to use the word proper. Going through a youth system and has proven himself that he is so better at his age group that they had to jump him over twice to be in a competitive. And I mean, essentially, the following year, the year before, once again, well, he was playing U17s the year before that. Where else can he be? Let's see what he does against grown men. And I guess he got the nod for Union 2, and that's what got him his shot with. And obviously, the other thing is also this kid, when he turns 18, is going to join Manchester City. So there's that contract as well that is also looming over. But obviously, I think the whole big difference is the fact that Caven went through a system versus Freddy Adu. Really don't remember. I really don't even recall the proper channels that came into Freddy Adu being signed by DC United.
It was very, very different. 'Cause I remember I was I'm like a couple years younger than Freddie Adu or something along those lines. So he was someone that like I know at the club level when I was playing, everyone kind of talked about. Something to keep in mind too, just the environment. I think what people don't realize is there were no development academies, right? So that did not exist. Like American soccer had not scaled to that point yet where we were producing homegrown talent for these professional clubs. They legitimately had to go out scout in a number of different ways. And I remember Freddie, he had the reason he had impressed at the club level because he was always playing against older age groups, and so at the older age group level, he was still bagging goals. His physicality looked like it stood out in a really great way. And keep in mind too, man, soccer was really in this country, I would say around the world even, was kind of changing in a big way. If you guys remember, this was the total 90 era, the start of it, and all the hype that came around that, right? So Freddie Adu was featured in a lot of those commercials, right? Like right when the Total 90 era came up for Nike, Freddie Adu was also coming up. He had gotten like recruited by IMG Academy, I think. And if you guys aren't familiar with IMG Academy, they're um that boarding school down in Florida for elite level athletes in this country across a number of sports. And when it came to soccer, they recruited heavily the best talent all across the country. Usually you were called into like a top 20 camp. Those camps are residencies. And for reference, guys like Breck Shea have gotten some of those same nods. Of course, Breck Shea came into it when he was 17 years old, not 14, for the U20 residency camp. But a combination of all of those things, and Freddie still, even at that elite level, in an older age group, was still finding a way to hold his own. Like, and I think most coaches probably figured if he can do this, right, going up against 17, 18-year-olds as a 14-year-old at an elite level, still holding his own, still contributing in a massive way, why can't he take that next jump up? So I think Freddie, a lot of it was just the perfect storm for him, right? And again, I feel like you look back at Freddie Adu's early career in MLS, and the honestly, bro, the documentary like Onside perfectly positioned it. I remember thinking we were talking about this when I was a teenager. I was like, everyone's asking, how is he going to do? What is he thinking? That's what every player my age was asking themselves. What is he thinking? How is he just processing all of this? It has to be immense pressure because, dude, like anybody, right now, even calling Cavan Sullivan the next Messi Like, how much pressure is that, right? Messi's the greatest player we've ever seen play this game. At that time, Pelé and Maradona were always the argument. Messi hadn't done what he's done up to this point yet. So to compare Freddy Adu to Pelé, like the greatest ever, right? Five-time World Cup winner, like you're or three-time World Cup winner. For a country as big as Brazil's won it 5 times all the way around. Like you're not going to ever live up to those standards. Like I almost thought even back then as a teenager, he could have a great game and it's not going to feel like it because the comparisons are fucking ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like there's no kid who's going to live up to that. But nonetheless, man, he got his shot and. Unfortunately, while there were some bright spots, don't get me wrong, we all saw how it went.
Yeah, I think when you don somebody the next Pele, which obviously that's a really high bar to put somebody on, and doing all these commercials with Pele, yeah, it just kind of goes into a recipe for disaster. And I am one of those people that I think full-heartedly, and I still believe to this day, we need to ban the phrase "the next Messi," the blank Messi, from anybody's vocabulary because that is a kiss of death. From every player that has ever been coined the blank Messi because Boyan was supposed to be the Spanish Messi.
Yeah,
Uh,
bro. You know what I think it is, though, if you really think about it? I think it's a symptom of America trying to create its own superstar, right? Pulisic suffered from that, right? The LeBron James of soccer, because the only comparison we could really make at that time, you couldn't call Pulisic a Messi.
Also,
Um,
thank you, Pawn Stars. That one,
yeah.
thanks, Pawn
So
Stars.
yeah, so like I think like even back with Freddie Adu, bro. I'll be honest. Like we didn't have development academies. There was no clear-cut way of identifying the absolute best young stars and young talents in this country, especially back then. And so Freddie was like just the product of America trying to pinpoint a homegrown superstar so it could be more relevant in global soccer. That's really what I think it is. And Cavan Sullivan, same thing, right? I think to an extent, right, while America does produce great talents, we have a pretty decent national team with the U.S. men's national team. Pulisic is awesome, Wes McKennie, all those guys, but no one is that next world-class talent. And so this 14-year-old comes along and you hear some of the same comparisons again because America is starving for this. We're starving for our own generational talent in this sport, like we've seen in other sports, right? LeBron with basketball is a perfect example, right? All the hype he got in high school, comparisons to Michael Jordan, those probably would have been a little more realistic back then because I don't know, we almost know more, right? The best league in the world is hosted in this country for basketball. So we almost know more of how his career might go, what to kind of expect. He has all the intangibles. He's balling out. But again, I think it's just America trying to put its stamp on as many, you know, global sports as it possibly can. And it happened with Freddie back then, and it's happening with Kevin Sullivan now.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that's really what happened. I think, and then that kind of leads to the worry for Caven Sullivan, where it's kind of the pressure is on not obviously him putting his own pressure, but also the whole country of the U.S. wanting this to be the guy. Like this is the guy that we're all hoping to see. It's kind of funny how like early days of Insert Name FC where I somehow I got to interview Heath Pierce. Don't know how I pulled that to this day, but I did it. I think about that interview because I asked him about the quote unquote golden generation that everyone keeps calling this current U.S. men's national team, and he was like, "There's no way that this is the golden generation." And he kept telling me like, "You will if you go and watch like the youth levels, you will see guys that you're like, okay, we're definitely building something here."
Hmm.
And weirdly enough, and it's funny because that always like it always keeps coming back to my head. And then going working at the Dynamo Academy and seeing guys that like I'm like, wow, I'm actually we have players. There is some players here. For the Dynamo, for example, I mean, um Raphael, who currently the captain of the U15, I think it's U15 or U16 Salvador national team, the team that got the first ever qualifier for World Cup for El Salvador. he plays for the Dynamo Academy. Obviously a David Garcia who doing his thing with Venezuela, and I mean right now, Matteo Di Morelli, who, you know, keep an eye out for that kid because that kid is disgusting. That dude is a dog. But he also getting actually had a potentially could have been playing for Albania, but chose the U.S. So like things like that, you're gonna see more players more and more, and I'm sure the FC Dallas Academy has names like that. I mean, I literally saw a kid named Daniel Barrett who's a track star playing center back, probably could play fullback, honestly. And this kid had a clear runaway, was going to score a goal. Daniel Barrett caught up to him. Mind you, this is Barrett was like 13 years old, playing U15 level. Catches up to this kid, gets the ball, and then sends it back and gets an assist. I'm not making that up. I was like, this kid, dude, the potential that I've seen some of these players. I'm like, yeah, we're doing okay. Hopefully they don't go to college. That's all I had. That's all I'm worried about is that the Dynamo are somehow going to screw this up and these kids are going to go to college, and which isn't a bad idea. It's good if they get educational, but I mean, if there's kids that they should be signed. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I mean, even like I said, I think they referenced one other kid that I'm very aware of because there's like links to Barcelona already. Of course, there are. I don't know if he came out of that Barca Academy, but he Julian Hall up
Hmm.
in New York in the Red Bulls, right? So, 16 years old, very very promising young talent. Probably going to end up in Europe at some point. We even see guys like over the years, like Georgi Mihalovic, have some of that same hype coming out as a youngster. So, I love what Mo Edu said in this episode where he talks a lot about, or he mentioned really quickly about, like when players peaks tend to come into play. Like the basically the overarching theme was the point he was trying to get across was we don't know the future for any player is a giant question mark. Youngsters today who have all the hype in the world may not pan out, right? They may have been great up to a certain point in their teenage years. And then again, we've seen plenty of players be somewhat relevant all throughout their career, and then in their late 20s, a crazy, run of form happens and it springboards their entire career. And they just seem to age like fine wine, right? So, I think with all of this said, there's plenty of young talents. Cavan Sullivan tends to be one of the most exciting because of his age and because of the potential that we see when we watch him play. But I think we do have to obviously tread carefully, right? Because that Freddy Adu story just looms over him.
Yeah, and that's always going to be the thing. And I think also one of the most important things when it comes to growing up a player, not only through coaching, but
Righteous Felon Craft Jerky is the official jerky of Belly Up Sports. For over a decade, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky has led the American meat snack revolution by concocting delicious, adventurous, U.S.-sourced jerky recipes for uncompromising carnivores across the country. With 15 different flavors to choose from, Righteous Felon has all jerky lovers covered, and by using promo code BELLYUP, you will get 15% off your purchase at righteousfelon.com. Do your taste buds a favor today and rip into a bag of Righteous Felon jerky.
family is a big thing. I think how you raise and how your support system is going to be very telling on how his approach is. And the Sullivan family, I gotta say, is 100% a soccer family.
Yep.
Obviously, father, former pro. Mom was captain of her college team. I forgot what college she played for, but
University of
also
Pennsylvania.
also very northeastern family.
Yep.
Maybe Italian. Definitely have some connection to Jersey because, my God, and I loved it though. And obviously older brother Quinn Sullivan, who currently plays for the Philadelphia Union as well. Also, I admire his confidence to say he's the better Sullivan in the family, even though he does not have a contract for Manchester City. Um, but, but I still admire the confidence. But yes,
Scored a banger in the episode. Yeah, his family, bro, through and through a soccer family. And you know what's crazy is it reminds me a lot of my own family in an interesting way, right? I think his dad is quintessential my dad. Not the background, right? I mean, my dad honestly didn't pick up soccer until like we were kids. He was more of a basketball and a baseball guy, in terms of like playing, right? But watching, he watched, of course, we're a soccer family through and through. He watched all as a young adult, brought us into the game. It's the reason I love Barcelona any other soccer that I watch. Took me to all of the Dallas Burn games, so I'm an FC Dallas fan at heart to this day. Of course, having played in the academy myself, but I think like just you watch the home videos, right? You watch like his demeanor in the crowd. His dad's almost never satisfied. There's always more that can be done. Those car rides home where, it's might as well be a full VOD session, right? You're just breaking down what you could have done better. And dad's never really content, never satisfied, and therefore Cavan never should be either. It felt like that. Like I had plenty of times where my mom's also like, as soon as my dad was done talking to me and my brothers, like my mom would come in and kind of have us focus more on the core message, not so much how he delivered it. And yeah, man, I think some families may watch that and be like, hey, it's a little harsh, it's a little tough. I think personally he could have been even more tough. And I will say that like it's kind of weird, but like even my own son, right? Like watching this, me playing with my son every single day. We kick around the soccer ball every single day. And I don't know, man. It's just I'm hard on him. He's barely about to be 2 years old, but I'm hard on him. I want him not to be a professional soccer player one day. If he does that, great. But I just want him to, whatever he decides to do, to know that it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be really hard. You want to be good at anything. And that quote that I think Cavan said his dad gave him, right? If you want to be great, you're gonna have to be different, right? Something along those lines. I think that I don't know if his parents raised him to be the phenom that he is at 14 years old. I think that, of course, they helped him every step of the way. I just think that they love this game and they saw something in him and really wanted to help nurture that and push him to every bit of his potential so that it wasn't wasted at the end of the day. And man, I'm willing to bet he's also extremely grateful. So it's not like a scene from the movie was it Whiplash?
Oh yeah, that when he's like the teacher's like throwing stuff at him and everything like
Yeah,
that.
it's not like a scene from the movie Whiplash, but I think that if you want to be great, you know that you're going to be on a road that nobody else is on. You're going to be doing things that nobody else is doing, putting in work when nobody else is putting in that work. And so for me, man, it's honestly at times I feel like I can be a little bit hard on my 1.5-year-old son, but at the same time, feel a little bit better knowing that there are parents out there who approach it the same way.
I think it goes to the point where I'm sure there was a moment for Caven where he said this is what he wants, and the parents were like, "Are you sure this is what you want to do? Because we'll go full send. Like, I mean, this is happening. Like, like there's no backing out after. There's no going back. Like once you're saying you're in it, because also MLS academies are expensive. So
Facts,
and
big
so
facts.
I mean, if this is what you want to do, then we're not gonna half-ass it. We're gonna go, full send and very Italian about it. And I mean, yes, his father was very vocal, and I think, but that's any dad at any sporting event, they're gonna be vocal. So I think that it's perfectly fine. I mean, obviously, as long as it doesn't get physical, it's perfectly fine. Also, I'm gonna just point this out, and maybe someone could judge me. I don't care, but Mama Sullivan, really nice gal. I think I rewatched it a few times trying to figure out where my stance was on that woman. But yeah, she's a lady. So that's
Yeah. And I think that the parents contrast each other really well. Like I'll be honest, man. As much as like, yeah, we say
she smiles a lot. Like that's the
yeah,
one thing I took. Well, is that was also kind of chill and vibing. But like when he's here, and it's kind of like that, right? That thing you need. You have the stern parent, but then here comes the other one. Like kind of how you mentioned with your mom saying like this was the message. Make sure you guys are aware. This is the message. This is what mattered more.
yeah.
And I think it was obviously both of them are on the same page. Clearly a happy couple. So
But bro, I mean, look at any. I'm not saying any, right? But you look at some of like the more high achieving athletes throughout history across a number of sports. Their dads usually were fucking psycho, bro. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not saying you have to be, right? But
the
it,
Ball
it, it
family.
yeah, the Ball family, the Williams sisters, uh, who's the other Tiger Woods dad. There's just
Oh
like
man,
there's all those examples that we can point to, but one thing one common denominator for me is that they all seem to understand that if you want to be great, it requires something that you never thought you were capable of doing, whether that be consistency of work over time, the level of effort that you put in, whatever the skill, right? How much skill you think you have versus what you actually need to have to be great. Like all of those things, I think at the end of the day, kids are naive and they only know what they know. And it's a parent's job to really kind of, again, push them to a point where you can see that potential rise to the top, right? You can see them grow and reach a new height they never reached before. So I don't know, man. I mean, to me, like I said, as a new parent, a newish parent who's watching this back, as someone who had a hard ass of a dad myself, we've also got into some crazy fucking arguments, me and my dad, over games, bro. Come home after a loss, after a game that we felt like we shouldn't have lost, and I'll be honest, bro. At times, it did get a little bit physical, as a teenager who had an ego and dealing with a dad who felt like he could be doing more and mom trying to separate us and things like that. I mean, like that, things just get heated. And I don't understand that they have to. It was cool to see that, I guess, we never really saw it in this docu-series. Maybe behind closed doors, it does get that way sometimes. Because teenagers are teenagers, bro. Like they'll talk back, they'll rebel. Tempers get, heated and flared, and sometimes, things go overboard. But I feel like sometimes, like I said, parents always mean well, but the delivery of the message isn't always as well received.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to retake a test in order to get a C. So,
Hey, yo, facts, bro. I felt that in the very beginning. I felt that. I was like, bro, see, I was like, that's all I need, man. Get me the hell out of here.
C's
I
get you C's
don't.
get you degrees, man. That's all.
Yep.
That's all you need to know.
I was like, I felt that, bro. I felt that.
But obviously on the flip end, and that's obviously the Philadelphia Union part, because in order for a 14-year-old to get his opportunity to go out there and show himself, well, you need a team that's probably in a very desperate situation to even have that moment of clarity. And obviously at this time, which is just kind of funny when I think about when Goals TV, when we're doing, Wake Up MLS, and I don't know if bold is the right word, but I was just willing to say it that Philadelphia was just mid, even though they were technically undefeated. Um, but I was like, this team is just mid, man. Like they're not really that good. Like, and I remember pissed off a lot of Philadelphia Union fans, which that led to a lot of great conversations after that. But I mean, yeah, Philadelphia was not looking great. Obviously, injuries were coming into play. For some reason, Jim Curtin was complaining about national team call-ups as well. I mean, God forbid you have players good enough to be recognized by the national team, but to quote it, he said all of that horrible shit like injuries and call-ups. So,
Yeah. And I think actually, bro, it's even more difficult than how you explained it. Because you think about it, right? Yeah, you have to be in a desperate situation to call up a 14-year-old to even train with you, right? Just like something different, something fresh. Let's mix some things up because clearly no wins in what was it, 10, 11 games. We were talking about Philly last year, right? When we talked about it a lot in the show, just how far they had fallen from grace, it felt like. So that environment has to be there for Cavan to get that call up. But then in order to get into a game, I mean, as a manager, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting him in a very tight game, even with 5, 10 minutes left. Like anything could happen. He could have a momentary lapse. He could get nervous, cough up the ball, a counterattack happens, you lose the game. It almost has to be a situation where it's risk free in terms of when you actually put him in. And so, building up to that point, if he hadn't gone in when he did, I would have understood because like you can't. Every result matters when you have a drought like that going on. And at the same time, how often have we seen all across global football youngsters get put in before they're ready, and the flame just goes out, right? Just like that, the confidence drops to an all-time low. They feel like maybe they're not ready, and then it's reflected, right? You never really hear that player's name again for a little while. So, in this day and age, like just with the age of the internet, like everyone is just completely glued to someone like Cavan Sullivan and his journey as he prepares for potentially minutes in a first team game. But dude, I mean, Jim Curtin had a big conundrum, like just again, juggling having to get results versus when he could actually put this player in. Super difficult situation.
Yeah, and it's crazy with Jim Curran, once praised as a very respectable coach in MLS, to really much the butt of all jokes, especially with the whole his comment about there's 10% of the league and the rest are in disarray. That obviously aged very well for him. Um, but yeah, you're talking about at that point. There's discussions of when is the right time to bring up Caven, when is his turn to be up with the 20 man roster for a match. Yes, he's doing well with Philadelphia Union too. Obviously, he's well at this point. Academy practices isn't even should even be a thought for him. Now it's him training with the first team, getting minutes with them, maybe getting some wisdom from Alejandro Bedoya. I don't know what wisdom that would be, but yes, get something from Alejandro Bedoya. Um, but I'm and even having your brother, and I think that probably is also very helpful. Having your older brother be there for you, have that guy like, hey, okay, they brought you down, now you got to get back up. And I think that was also a concern initially for everybody else. Is he is a little dude, he has to go up against grown men, and what happens when he has to go body for body with somebody, and what's his response to it. And I mean, I'm glad that Quinn did have that whole like nobody cares, man, get back up kind of mentality with him. I think that's how it should be,
Yeah.
especially in the MLS, because MLS is very a physical league. I mean, you heard Messi. Messi said it. It's a physical league. And so you anticipate to get hit pretty frequently in this league.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the one difference I kind of pointed to a little bit earlier in the show, between him and Freddy Adu. I think Freddy Adu physically was a little more. He was probably just as short, but I think he had a better just build. So he kind of hold his own. And again, I'm sure Cavan's been playing against older kids, for quite some time. But back then, it really meant, I think, a lot more because there wasn't a fully fledged pipeline of young academy talent that you had access to go up against every day. You really had to go out of your way to play against older kids. And so I think, Freddie might have been slightly more ready physically, but then again, I think it's also where Cavan's strengths on the ball with his agility, his quickness, the pace beyond that first 1 to 2 touches, like that burst of speed that he has, all of those things could potentially be a reason and a factor as to why he may be more successful.
Yeah, but they did decide eventually that this was the right game for him, which was against the New England Revolution, which honestly probably the perfect opponent to bring in, at least the idea of bringing in Cavan Sullivan to be on the 20 man roster. And obviously everyone's excited for him. He's going through his first pregame meal, which very Italian, chicken parm. So validates my argument about them being possibly an Italian family. Um,
I think it's also the fact that it's just like a good
it's
carb-loaded
actually a
meal.
pretty good pregame meal too. But it does lead to one of my all time complaints, being an uncle to a teenager. Um, Kids don't like to eat. I don't know what it is about about it, but they'll like say they're hungry and then eat like half a burger, and then they say, "Here, Theo, finish the rest." And you wonder why I'm fat.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. Like, yeah, kids don't eat, bro.
I love how
Yeah,
Quinn was like, "You got to eat more pasta, bro."
yeah. You don't. Well, shit. I would tell the same thing. Like, bro, you have to. Like, this is, and it's in an annoying way too. Because I don't know, man. I remember I was coming through tournaments. Like, we had this one coach of mine who would like, anytime we went out of town for a tournament, we were always going to like Spaghetti Warehouse. I don't know if that restaurant's still a thing anymore, but we were
It very
always,
much is.
anytime we could go to like any market that had a Spaghetti Warehouse, that's where we were going because it was just carb loading. And it was always the night before. So carb load the night before, and then we'd have like a couple small meals before games the next day. And I mean, it does work, but I could totally see where Kevin's like, hey, bro, honestly, man, I'm kind of posted out. I'm good. And at the same time, too, he may not have been hungry, bro. I know if butterflies were going in my stomach, the day of a game, I'm probably not eating. Probably not eating.
As someone that worked in the Dynamo Academy, I can tell you, we ate a lot of pasta. Like, now that
It's
I
just
think
it's just
about
the,
it,
it's just the best thing for you, bro.
I
The
had
best
a
thing for you.
lot of pasta. Matter of fact, when we went to Maryland for MLS Next Flex, I remember trying to say that 3 times. Um, we were go. It was funny because like they were showing us like what's the first meal that we're gonna have when we got to Maryland, and they said something about a vodka sauce, and I was like, oh, I'm actually looking forward to this. Like it was funny because me and like all the other coaches were like, ooh, vodka sauce. I never had vodka sauce. I want to know what that's all about. And then our team, our strength and conditioning coach, was like, no, the kids can't have vodka. And I was like, well, once you heat it up, obviously it's not gonna have the vodka aftermath. But he wasn't having
Yeah.
it. He was, so we didn't get to eat the. Which I was like, okay, well, let them not have the vodka sauce, but can you guys at least like slide in the vodka sauce on my side? Wow, I feel like being an uncle again. Anyways, but no, yeah, I mean, obviously, he goes to the whole pregame thing. I love the when they were going into the car. You have Quinn with his little hygiene kit. Caven has like literally nothing, and then the first thing he's like, "I wonder if my shin guards in the locker room."
I know, right? He's like already out the door. He's like, I wonder if I have everything. But yeah, bro. I mean, first stage jitters. He probably just got his mind solely on the game.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously for you, you obviously you played college soccer. What was that like when it was your first college game?
Ah, man, I was nervous. Um, and never in a. I like the analogy he used when Cavan talked about in the series because I totally agree. There's two kinds of nervous, right? You're either butterflies in your stomach, right? Like you're ready to get out there, but you're again you haven't done this before, so you're a little bit nervous, um, or shitting yourself. And I've seen players who are shitting themselves. I had a couple teammates in my freshman year who were shitting themselves. And it's not because like they weren't good enough for the moment, not because they weren't like ready. We had been training for months, right? Like we were ready. It's just you're finally here. The lights are on, they're bright. Like the crowd's out there, usually bigger than the crowds you bring in at a high school game, usually. And yeah, man, I think it for me, it was sinking in as a defender. The biggest thing I was nervous about, I was too small to play the position that I played in high school. So I was a center back in high school, got to college, could not play that at the D2 level. I was too small. So I was playing a position that I never played in a formal game before, playing outside back. And that's what I was nervous about. I was like, what if I just go out there, my brain shuts off and I don't do the right things? What happens if, this happens or this happens? So I was nervous up until you make that first tackle, right? Up until you like, and I'm sure Cavan felt it too. When you get the ball and you make a move with it, you just get right back into your flow state. So that's how it was for me. And don't get me wrong, there was plenty of bad moments that I had throughout my career. But in that first game, I actually thought it was half decent. I only played half the game. And it was one of those situations where I came on at halftime and I was just I was like teammates were coming around like, hey, settle in, right? Get the first tackle early because the minute that you do, you're gonna feel a shit ton better. Tell me to go out there, have fun, don't think about it. And when it came time for the next class, the next freshman to come through in my sophomore year, I was doing the same thing for those guys. So I think your teammates and your coach do a lot to help you settle in, but more often than not, man, it's just mental.
Yeah, and the game goes pretty much as a blowout. It's not even like remotely close. Quinn goes in first as a substitute. I don't know why anybody was shocked by that. Like, oh, there's a Sullivan, just not that Sullivan. Which,
Could you imagine if Cavan had gone in before him?
yeah. Also, I don't know how I would not want to like have anybody play the broadcast if I was Quinn because to hear like, oh, the other Sullivan, like,
He'll always be that man, unfortunately.
like he's like, hey man, I was pro first. Like,
I know, bro. Like he'll always be the other Sullivan, just because. Again, when you have your brother just in the same name circles as like Messi, right? The next Messi or whatever. It's like you're never gonna be the star of the show in that family. But I thought his demeanor as an older brother, perfect, bro. I think he uh like didn't seem like he was getting any like it didn't bother him. Like he just wanted Cavan to be successful and knew he was kind of a baller in his own right. Like you said, he was the first pro in that family as far as the kids go. So and he scored a banger, bro. Scored an absolute banger. The celebration was fucking awesome too, to be honest.
Yeah, it was really cool for him, for his brother to be there with him when he scored that goal. Obviously, it's not his first goal, but just him scoring that goal, his brother's there. I think in some sense, kind of maybe shakes a little bit off for Caven as well, because he's not now. He's kind of like not thinking too much about the game itself. Now he's like, hey, my brother just scored. Now I kind of want to go in and show that I'm the better finisher than Quinn Sullivan, because he did make that statement earlier in the video in the episode.
Yeah.
But he comes and I mean, Kernan's like, all right, well, we're good now. We can't screw this up. So he's like, we're gonna bring him in on the 85th minute, and he does it. Becomes the youngest player to ever play in an MLS game, and breaks the Freddy Adu record. Um, I remember. I mean, I'm pretty sure we were all talking about Caven Watch because of the potential of him breaking that record. I did watch the game. I mean, the game it was a blowout. I mean, there's nothing really else much to say.
If you were
Uh,
neutral, it's boring as shit, to be honest. I mean, like, yeah, good game for the Union, but they needed it at that point.
yeah, it was one of those like glad they got that one, but yeah. So Caven comes in. Um, like I said, there's only so much you could do to like 5+ minutes, But I think he gets a shot. It wasn't obviously didn't go in, but yeah. I mean, at least you got it out of the way, right? You got the debut out of the way. Now, at least in hopes it should be smooth sailings from there.
Yeah, 100%. That's what you want, right? It's the biggest things, just like almost like you said, get it out of the way because there's so much anticipation that gets built up. I mean, the whole damn episode, it was a countdown, right, to potentially breaking the record for the youngest player to play in an MLS game, and it was just counting down day by day, right? And it kind of maybe gives you a little bit of an insight into how he may have thought about it. It's like a goal he had. I want to leave my stamp as far as my career goes on this league by being the youngest player to ever play professional soccer from in MLS. And at a time where MLS is bigger than it's ever been, that's always going to be the case moving forward, of course, I'm sure. But it's just, again, it's a completely different scenario than Freddie Adu, right? To be the youngest player in the league at a time where the league was a minnow in comparison to every other league globally, versus when Cavan Sullivan's doing it and then has the backing of the Manchester City contract, right? He's going to move there when he's 18. Like there's all of this hype. And I'm sure he had to be thinking, God, I need to make sure that I live up to that in this first game in some way, shape, or form. My touches have to be solid. Let's try to get a shot off. Let's try to create something with these few minutes that I get. So, all in all, I'm sure he's glad he got out of the way, but I'm also sure he's glad that it went probably as well as it could have gone outside of maybe him scoring.
No, yeah, definitely, and I think the other thing too is we need to, as far as like Americans go, like stop making this feel like this is not the norm in football in this sport. I mean, obviously, 14 years old is a little bit is a little young for it, but I mean, last year we literally witnessed Lamine Yamal, 16 years old, doing it in the biggest stages of them all. Doing it for Barcelona in the Champions League, doing it for Spain in the Euro. Turns 17 and wins a Euro. What a birthday present that is. Like like things like that. Like it's normal in
Yeah.
that aspect. Like that's why why it's one of those things that I shit on college soccer. No offense, but like one of the things I do shit on college soccer is that like while I do think it is a good resource, especially here in the MLS. It's just my problem is that you're hoping that this guy that once again is like 21, 23 around that age range to fight for a start, fight for a roster spot, not even for a starting spot, fighting for a roster spot on this MLS team, whereas most guys in that age group are at least solidified in their role with their teams, and so like that's one of the biggest things, and like with the academy systems where you have a lot of clubs across the world that do utilize their academies. There's some that don't. I mean, Real Madrid's a prime example of one of those teams that just doesn't really. But when they have an academy player, wow, that guy pans out. But you know, but more often than not, they buy their guys, which
Yeah. Every club has their own strategy. You know what I mean in terms of how they bring players. There's actually been more than a few ballers out of the academy at Real Madrid that have gone on to become fantastic players. And you deal with guys like Odegaard, guys like Takefusa Kubo, just some of these guys again that have been absolute ballers. But you know, um, a- America is, you can just tell with this, right? With the Cavan Sullivan story, America is ready to have its own, right? Its own Lamine Yamal. And by the way, I thought that's the first thing I thought of when he said, I want to be the best player ever, right? It's for me, I didn't go straight to Messi and making that comparison. I thought immediately of Lamine Yamal, And I think that if we get that moving forward, if that ends up becoming the comparison, right? Or even, again, kids like Ethan Nwaneri, who's getting a lot of shouts after what he's done with Arsenal this season. Um, it's going to be a crazy generation of talent that could be coming through. And if Cavan Sullivan ends up being at the top of it, can only imagine what soccer in America will look like at that point. So there's a lot of pressure on him, man, to be honest. I think he realizes that, but I also hope he realizes that he's going up against an insane baller. And I think that Lamine Yamal, as far as youngsters go, is probably the standard, right? At least as far as attackers go, someone like Cavan Sullivan can directly compare his game to. Other guys like, I mean, whether it's Asensio at Real Madrid, Cubarsí at Barcelona, defenders and whatnot, probably not more of a direct comparison. But someone like Lamine Yamal, that's someone that I think he should be mentally not chasing, but if he is going to make comparisons, I don't compare yourself to Messi, bro. Compare yourself to that kid because that kid is well on his way to being the next global generational talent at 17 years old. So that's going to be fun to watch, I think, over the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Also, don't forget about Thiago Messi, who wants to be playing alongside Lamine Yamal, which I thought, wow, that kid's reaching, and then I realized his age, and I'm like, oh shoot, that actually might be a thing.
Bro, when it's in 2030, Lamine Yamal will be 23 years old.
Playing in the Saudi Arabia World Cup.
Yeah, basically, bro. It honestly that's fucking mind blowing. It makes me feel, you know, old one, but two, privileged as a Barcelona fan. Just even as an FC Dallas fan, like I get some of these clubs that I truly am passionate about just tend to have that identity of having something to build off of in terms of youth and an academy. And yeah, man, like I think the Union obviously should be very proud of what they've discovered in Cavan Sullivan, but at the same time, you got to find the next one, right? If this is what the academy at the Union is capable of, I really want to see them take another step up and see if they can consistently produce, superstars, at least in MLS. And maybe not global superstars like Cavan Sullivan, if that's the route he's going to go, but at least consistent producers in this league.
Yeah, and honestly, man, that group that Caven was in the academy with Philadelphia, that's a very solid group of players. Obviously, not all of them are going to get first team contracts right away. I'm sure many of them are actually going to be going through the college rankings, which once again, I don't think is a terrible thing. I think obviously college you develop certain things that you are probably just not going to be able to develop in the academy,
Yeah.
especially if you're a defender. I think it just bodes well for you. It's one also defenders. I feel like specifically center backs, you get more leeway when it comes to age. Like it's not like a time, you're on a specific time clock. You like 30 plus year old center backs usually tend to be more savvier. So I don't think that like I'm not that's not one of those positions where age is a concern. Obviously, when you think of wingers and more attacking minded players that definitely depend on pace, those are the positions that I usually think of that man you better be playing when you're 20. But and I think that's also the thing. Once again, I gotta say like we need to start making that the norm. We cannot be kind of judging, and obviously it's not MLS. I mean, I just remember NWSL. I believe that they have a player as well that maybe not 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there. That I think for Angel City, she made her debut, and like everybody was like, "No, that girl needs to be in school," and I'm just like. I feel like 10 or 12 and like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, I understand when parents or and I usually assume they're parents, but like when fans have that sentiment, right? It's like, are they too young? And I think they think about maybe the lifestyle that being a professional athlete comes with, and just ask themselves immediately from a moral standpoint, is it too young? Are they ready for everything that it comes with? Because we've seen it time and time again, right? Anybody who's thrust into stardom or fame at an early age, it usually does not bode well. Like they're usually going to make pretty dumb decisions because they're a young person. It's just how it works. So I understand it. With that said, there's no shot in hell that I'm ever going to have or be okay with either someone I know or really any promising youngster out there turning down massive opportunities for the sake of allowing them to be a child, allowing them to grow up according to the status quo in this country or even globally, right? Like if you want to be different, be different. I think that's totally okay. And so, if they want to go about it that way, they should. And I think, Cavan's doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, using his dad's quote right at there, if you want to be great, you got to be different.
Hmm.
And I think honestly, like I'm excited to see what happens. Philadelphia actually looks pretty not that bad right now. So, yeah, we'll see what happens for this season for them. The next episode is going to feature Tim Parker and St. Louis. I think this is going to be a very interesting episode. Tim Parker is somebody that I wish the Dynamo never let go. Because
Dog.
dog, that is that.
Absolute dog mentality. Yeah.
Also, that's a grown man. That's all I have to say. Because yeah,
He's built different, bro. He's the epitome of like just dude, just fucking wears his emotions on his sleeve, passionate as hell, big boy, 100%, and isn't really scared of anything on the pitch, man, to be honest. Knowing what we know about Parker now and his time in St. Louis, and if you don't know, I'm not going to spoil anything, of course. Maybe you're just now tuning into Major League Soccer and catching up here, so I won't spoil anything. But just like where we know his career is gone, yes, this next episode's going to be a banger.
yeah, and I think it's also going to be another very different one because obviously the first two episodes were very much two different teams. Let's follow them going into this match day. You have Caven Sullivan who is talking about his opportunity to become to break this record, and now you have the whole Tim Parker situation, which I'm kind of interested in on how they're going about that one, and I think it's going to be a very interesting episode. So MLS Onside, man. Like I said, man, they did a really good job with this. I hope they keep doing more stuff like this. Hope they make more content. But you know what? I think that they're doing a great job. We're about to hit the halfway point of this series, and obviously, I'm glad Jose was wanting to come and do this. I know this is different from being analytical about the game itself, but I've actually enjoyed this series, and I'm sure you've been enjoying it as well.
Yeah, bro. No, honestly, it's a great change of pace from the normal content that we do, just covering this league. And also, man, I think it's really cool going about it this way. I think a lot of fans probably are like, some who maybe haven't tuned into the series before are asking themselves, oh, why would I go back and watch it? We know how the season went in 2024. We didn't know these storylines. We did not have them right at the time. And it's like an onion that we're peeling back layer by layer. And 2024, keep in mind, probably one of the craziest seasons in MLS history. So to just know what we know about it going in, it's like you have a teaser or a spoiler alert in the best way possible. Like we all know how it ends, but there's all of these stories intertwined in between that we had no insights into. Insights directly into player personalities along the way. I didn't know what to expect going in with the Cavan Sullivan thing, just like I have no idea what to expect with Tim Parker. All right. I know about Parker what I see on the field. And as a former center back myself, that is an absolute dog. So I can't wait to watch episode number 4 of Onside. But again, whether it was Ricky Puig, in the very first episode or anything else that we've already watched, man, if you haven't tuned in, if you don't watch this game or you're just getting into MLS, like go check it out. It is a fantastic, I think, foundation to give yourself when you think about the drama that occurs within this league, especially if you're one of those fans who believes that MLS is boring or doesn't have much to offer the casual fan. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and now I'm just looking to see, like, watching just the games right now this season. I'm like, I wonder if they're gonna do an MLS Onside about that one. Like,
Bro, I hope so, bro. I hope so, man. And God, I really hope that especially some of these preseason stories and how they come about, like the exits that we've
you
seen.
you you
Also,
you definitely need to have a Lucho Acosta. Like, I think
I
FC
need
Dallas
it,
has to
bro. I need
be
it. I need
FC
Lucho
Dallas
leaving
has to be in
Cincy.
next year's.
Always, bro. I also think that we need even like how Cucho left Columbus, like there's just like random storylines, that I really, really want to just go back and see if I can dig almost deeper into. And that's what this series gives you. Like it saves you time on the research part, and also just gives you a ton of insight that you never would have had. So yeah, man, if they do an onsite for 2025, which I'm really hopeful that they do, I got a feeling that one's gonna be a banger too.
Yeah, for sure. But all right, Jose, thank you for coming on. Obviously, this is your time. Tell us what's going on over there at Goals.
Yeah, man. Goals TV, guys, go check it out if you haven't. It's an exciting time for us as a very young, very promising startup company. Goals TV, GOLZ.TV, your place for everything fan-generated footy content. We got actually, at the time this video comes out, I believe the next 1 to maybe 2 episodes of Eric Winalda's series Unleashed will be both on the platform and on YouTube on our Goals TV channel. So if you haven't checked that out already, whether you're subscribing to Goals TV on YouTube for free or subscribing to the Unleashed channel on Goals TV also for free, either way, regardless of how you guys do it, go check it out. Let us know what you think. Pretty soon, Eric's going to want to speak directly to the fans who are tuning in. So again, make sure you're locked in for that. It's probably a really unique opportunity, I think, to get in front of a former USMNT legend in one of the coolest ways possible. So stay tuned for that. And otherwise, Hector, I appreciate it, bro.
Always, man. All right, we're going to segue over to Players of the Week.
Fight and win!
All right, guys, we're back. All right. Players of the Week is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an amazing ticketing site application, depending on how you use it. Ooh, hit the mic. Me and Edward, we use SeatGeek for a lot of our going to all our live events like concerts, theater shows, comedy shows, and of course sports. Me and Edward use it to get access to all our favorite events, and we love the simplicity of it. It has a really easy grading system using numbers and colors. If it is a low score, it's going to be super red. That means those seats for that price is not worth it. Keep searching. You're going to find a great deal. Now, the higher your score, the greener it gets. That means these seats for that price, you're getting a great deal. Enjoy your event. Buy these tickets now. We love the simplicity of SeatGeek. If that doesn't sell you more than it should already have, if you guys use the code BellyUpSports at checkout for your first time use, it'll save $20 off your first purchase. So, thank you to SeatGeek. We love you. You do so much for us. We use you guys way too much. No, not way too much. We don't use you enough, but we use you a lot. Obviously, so we love them. Go ahead and check them out. Use the code BellyUpSports at checkout. Save $20 off your first purchase. All right. My player of the week is, gotta be careful, Alexi Vega. Almost activated her. He scored a hat trick in Toluca's 5-2 win against Necaxa. It was pretty slim pickings when it came down to this past weekend, so I had to go to Liga MX to find my player of the week. But Edward's player of the week is Christian Pulisic, who scored 2 goals in AC Milan's 3-2 win against Lecce. Big win for them. Yeah, AC Milan needs to win some matches, man. That's all I gotta say. That's all I have to say at this point. So, congratulations to Alexi Vega and Christian Pulisic for being our players of the week. Make sure you guys go to SeatGeek.com once again. Use that code BellyUpSports and save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek Live's an event. We have the tickets. All right, we got some games to watch this weekend. In the MLS, we got San Diego FC taking on Columbus Crew. That's a big matchup. Both teams have 2 wins and a draw. So that's going to be interesting. Also this weekend, we have a cup final. The first cup final in England, the Carabao Cup final. Take that with a grain of salt. But hey, these 2 teams are in the final, so they might as well try to win it. And that is Liverpool going for their first trophy under the Arne Slot regime. And Newcastle United. Can Newcastle United get their first trophy now under the new rich ownership that they have? Could this be the start of a new beginning for Newcastle United for the tune? And we'll see how they do against Liverpool. So, Carabao Cup final, that is this weekend. We also have Pumas taking on Monterrey and Liga MX, 2 teams that are doing fairly well in Liga MX right now. Sergio Ramos, who has now scored 2 goals in 2 consecutive matches. Has scored a goal in 2 consecutive matches. So he's definitely in good form. So we'll see what happens there. Does he keep that streak going? Also, big matchup. The Old Firm Derby, Celtic versus Rangers in the Scottish Premier League. One of the historical rivalries in football. If you guys have yet to have seen this match, go watch it. Both teams right now are doing fairly well in their league. It's a good matchup. It's a good rivalry. I'm gonna make sure to watch it. You should too. In Ligue 1, we got RC Lens taking on Stade Rennes, and Le Classique PSG versus Marseille. I think this is such an interesting matchup because since the early, like literally the beginning of Insert Name FC, we highlighted Le Classique. I think it was our first episode actually, where we highlighted Le Classique, and then the following episode we had to talk about the brawl that happened in this match. So this match. Le Classique has a very close bond to Insert Name FC at this point. But in the so that's Liga 1. In the Bundesliga, we got FC Augsburg taking on VfL Wolfsburg. That's a good matchup, and we have RB Leipzig taking on Borussia Dortmund, two teams that are in dire need of finding a form. In the Serie A, we got some big matches that could change the tables. We got Fiorentina versus Juventus and Atalanta versus Inter Milan. So some good matches over there in the Serie A. In La Liga, we got Villarreal versus Real Madrid and Atletico versus Barcelona, which is also a jersey bet matchup between Edward and Spencer. Obviously, this past weekend, me and Edward had a draw with the Manchester United Arsenal match. So we'll see what happens here with Atletico Madrid and Barcelona. Obviously, last time they played, Atletico Madrid got the better of Barcelona. We'll see if maybe does that repeat, or did Hansi Flick and the boys learn their lesson. In the Premier League, we got Manchester City versus Brighton, and we got the London Derby, Arsenal versus Chelsea. So yes, it is very much, and this is one of the few times I'll drop a F-bomb, but fuck Chelsea. I'm sorry, Kelsey. I gotta do it, man. I gotta do it at some point. So, even though this is not all the games that are happening this weekend, I think this is a good beginner's guide if you're still trying to get into the game, trying to still figure your way into it. Also, a pretty good weekend. Also, like I said, Carabao Cup final, Old Firm Derby. That's some two pretty good matches there to be looking forward to this weekend. So, once again, this is not all the matches, but if you need a good beginner's guide, I think it gave you some good matches to look forward to this weekend. So we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and then we'll wrap this show up in a pretty little bow for you.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to episode 209. I want to give a shout out to Belly Up Sports. Check out their website, bellyupsports.com. Lots of great articles going on right now. Obviously, MLB season is right around the corner. We got March Madness happening. NFL, you can start tampering now in the NFL. If you guys, I can't explain to you what the hell that is. Essentially, now teams can go talk to players about joining their team. That's essentially what that means. There's like a period where you're not allowed to do that because it'd be bad. Now you can do it. So, but that's going on. The NFL draft is not that far. Is I think next month as well. So, lots of things going on. Obviously, they cover soccer from time to time, but go check out their website, especially if you're a big fan of American sports. Go ahead and check out their website, bellyofsports.com. Follow them on Instagram and X at bellyofsports. And also, Goals TV. You heard Jose Tellez. He is the founder, the creator, the mind, the body, everything you can think of when it comes to Goals TV. He is the guy for it. GOZ.TV. It is an amazing streaming platform where you can find content on content about soccer, whether it's MLS or the American's perspective of the international game. That's where you can find it. You can find us there as well. So go ahead and check them out, man. Jose has done such a great job, man, with what's going on over there at Goals, man. But follow them on Instagram at goals.tv, GOLZ.tv, goals.tv on Instagram, and on the X is goals_TV. So GOLZ_TV to check them out on the X. And of course, we cannot talk about this podcast without the heartbeat, the soul, Roosevelt Spencer. He is our producer extraordinaire. If you guys hear the intros, the outros, that is Spencer 100%. If you guys love the beat work that we have for this podcast, we recommend Spencer. We love Spencer so much that he is the namesake of our Player of the Year award. So we really want you guys to realize how important he is to us. So if you guys need beat work, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're a YouTube guy, because Copyright is a bitch, and I totally get that. But hey, if you have your own original beats, you won't have to deal with that. Also, if maybe you're a music artist and you need some beats for yourself, hit up Spencer. He'll take great care of you like he always does with us. So follow him on Instagram at thatguydope. Once again, at thatguydope. ThatGuyDope. That guy dope. And he will take great care of you like he always does with us. We love Spencer. Go get those free tickets over there at the Seattle Sounders game. But with all that being said, man, that is episode 209. Thank you so much for listening. Catch us next week for episode 210. Wow, I can't believe we're at that number now. International break is coming up, so obviously you know one thing for certain. We're going to talk about that U.S. men's national team roster. So get ready for that. So thank you so much for listening. Catch us next week. Take care, guys.